Deep in the subterranean vaults beneath the ancient, fortified stone of the Tower of London, a clandestine handover was inches away from changing royal history forever. At exactly 11:45 a.m. yesterday, a custom-built armored transport box, carrying a payload of unimaginable historical weight, was signed out for immediate transit. Inside lay the famed Spencer Emerald Choker, a dazzling, priceless artifact inextricably linked to the tragic legacy of the late Princess Diana. Its final destination was a private legal courier operating under the direct authority of Meghan Markle's ruthless California litigation team. But that armored box never made it to the tarmac. In an unprecedented and shocking physical interception, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, flanked by the master of the household and two heavily armed royal guards, physically barricaded the subterranean corridor. Her voice cut through the damp, echoing silence like absolute ice, ordering the courier to drop the vault. The extraction was halted in its tracks. If you are absolutely stunned by the length some will go to dismantle the legacy of the crown, and you want to ensure the true defenders of the royal family are supported, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. We are exposing the ultimate royal power plays that the mainstream media is too terrified to touch, and your subscription ensures these hidden truths are brought into the light. To understand the anatomy of this audacious, near-successful heist, we must rewind the clock back to the somber, rain-soaked evening of September 19, 2022, the day the world laid Queen Elizabeth II to rest. While millions mourned in the streets, with the tolling bells echoing across London, behind the heavy velvet curtains of Buckingham Palace, a flurry of highly classified legal maneuvering was quietly taking place regarding the late Onyx's unfathomable jewelry collection. But buried beneath the standard royal inheritances lay a ticking time bomb. What the public, and indeed most of the royal inner circle, did not know was that Princess Diana had secretly drafted a heavily guarded, ironclad addendum to her own will in the winter of 1996. In a desperate bid to preserve her memory and protect her treasures from palace bureaucracy, she explicitly stipulated that her personal jewelry collection was to be split equally and fairly among the future wives of her two sons. For years, the palace managed this delicate mathematical equation amicably, ensuring a quiet peace across the Atlantic. But peace is not profitable, and Meghan's aggressive Hollywood lawyers, combing through decades of sealed royal decrees, recently unearthed a terrifying legal loophole. They presented a ruthless, mathematically engineered argument to the courts. Because Kate Middleton had already worn the lion's share of the collection over her years of royal service, the California legal team argued that, by sheer monetary value and distribution quotas, Meghan was now legally entitled to outright ownership of the Spencer Emerald Choker. They didn't just ask for it. They filed a brutal emergency injunction, citing that the priceless artifact was being unlawfully and maliciously withheld by the Crown. They intended to legally extract Diana's most prized possession out of the United Kingdom, completely severing it from British soil, and flying it directly into the waiting arms of a private vault in Montecito. And the most terrifying part of this entire ordeal is that they almost succeeded. When the confidential injunction landed on the heavy mahogany desk of Prince William, panic threatened to consume the royal household. The thought of Diana's signature emeralds being paraded on a Hollywood red carpet was entirely unfathomable. But Catherine did not panic. Instead, she completely vanished from the public eye. Palace insiders have now confirmed that the Princess of Wales disappeared into the deepest, most restricted subterranean levels of the Royal Library, locking herself away for 3 grueling days. Surrounded by towering stacks of centuries-old ledgers, constitutional charters, and dust-covered royal registries, Kate embarked on a desperate archival hunt alongside 2 of the nation's most elite constitutional historians. The air in the room was thick with the smell of aged parchment and the frantic scratching of fountain pens. She knew that to defeat a modern, multi-million-dollar California lawsuit, she could not rely on mere sentiment or royal privilege. She needed an absolute, unassailable legal weapon. She needed a ghost from the past to protect the ghost of the present. And then, hidden within the crumbling, yellowed pages of the deeply classified Althorpe archival register, she found it. It was a virtually forgotten, dust-covered decree known as the 1981 Royal Chattel Reversionary Act. Signed in absolute secrecy by the Queen Mother herself during the tumultuous early days of Charles and Diana's marriage, this document possessed a staggering, undeniable power. The Act explicitly and legally dictates that any artifact deemed of supreme historical significance to the direct line of succession cannot, under any circumstances, be exported outside the boundaries of the Commonwealth realms without the joint, physical signatures of both the sitting monarch and the reigning Princess of Wales. It was a fail-safe, a brilliant, dormant trap laid out 40 years ago, and Kate had just pulled the trigger. She had unearthed the ultimate legal trump card, a piece of irrefutable evidence so ironclad and devastating that it completely nullified any jurisdictional claim manufactured in an American courtroom. The emeralds were bound to the bloodline, legally, tethered to the soil of the kingdom by an ancient royal seal that Meghan's lawyers had entirely failed to anticipate. With this devastating document secured tightly in her grip, Kate emerged from the archives not as a grieving daughter-in-law, but as the absolute, uncompromising enforcer of the crown's legacy. The stage was now set for one of the most explosive, high-stakes legal showdowns in the modern history of the monarchy. A secure, encrypted teleconference was immediately ordered, summoning the highest-ranking barristers in the United Kingdom to face off against the ruthless, high-priced litigators representing the Sussex estate. The crimson drawing room of Buckingham Palace was prepared for war, its heavy oak doors locked from the inside, the temperature in the room plummeting as the digital connection was established. This was no longer just a legal dispute over a piece of jewelry. It was a brutal, existential battle for the very soul and narrative of Princess Diana, and Catherine was fully prepared to defend that narrative at any cost. The heavy silence in the crimson drawing room was shattered by the sharp, metallic click of the encrypted monitor flickering to life. Across the glowing screen, a phalanx of the most aggressive, highly compensated litigators in California sat in their glass-walled Los Angeles boardroom, radiating a predatory, almost arrogant confidence. They immediately launched into a calculated, relentless assault, their voices echoing harshly off the gilded, silk-lined walls of the ancient palace. They didn't just argue probate law, they threatened scorched earth psychological warfare. They threatened to drag the royal institution through the unforgiving mud of the international press, promising a relentless, synchronized media campaign that would accuse the firm of maliciously erasing Meghan's rightful, emotional connection to the late Princess of Wales. They painted a picture of a grieving daughter-in-law, systematically denied her rightful inheritance by a jealous, archaic establishment, demanding the immediate, unquestioned execution of their emergency injunction and the swift release of the Spencer emeralds to the waiting courier at the Tower of London. They spoke of imminent public relations crises, of leaked audio tapes, and of exclusive primetime interviews that would permanently shatter the monarchy's remaining global goodwill. The air in the room grew suffocatingly tight, the British barristers shifting uncomfortably in their heavy leather chairs, bracing for the impending media nightmare. But at the absolute center of the long, polished mahogany table, Catherine remained entirely motionless. Her posture was absolute steel, her expression an impenetrable fortress of calm amidst the escalating legal storm. She did not interrupt their meticulously rehearsed, aggressive monologue. She simply watched them, her eyes locked onto the camera lens with a cold, unblinking intensity that reportedly caused the temperature in the room to drop to sub-zero levels. When the lead American attorney finally paused, his voice dripping with the smug expectation of a panicked negotiation or a frantic offer of a massive financial settlement, he was met with a deafening, terrifying silence. Catherine did not look at her lawyers. She did not consult a notepad. She slowly, deliberately reached across the vast expanse of the table, her fingers resting lightly on the cover of a weathered, crimson leather folder bearing the heavy, gold-embossed seal of the reigning monarch. With the agonizing slowness of an executioner drawing a blade, she opened the folder. The only sound in the cavernous drawing room was the sharp, dry rustle of aged parchment, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of centuries of unspoken power. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her words were delivered with a lethal, whispered precision that cut through the encrypted digital feed like a scalpel. She calmly informed the opposing counsel that their exhaustive mathematical calculations and their highly publicized California injunctions were entirely irrelevant in the face of sovereign law. She introduced them to the 1981 Royal Chattel Reversionary Act, reading the precise, unyielding language signed by the Queen Mother with devastating clarity. She detailed the absolute impossibility of the emeralds leaving the Commonwealth without her own personal signature, a signature she explicitly, coldly promised would never, under any circumstances, materialize on their documents. The legal mechanism they had spent millions of dollars to engineer was instantly reduced to ashes by a forgotten piece of history she had pulled from the darkest corners of the royal archives. Witnesses inside the room noted a visceral, almost cinematic shift in the atmosphere the moment the words left her lips. The predatory confidence, radiating from the Los Angeles boardroom, evaporated in an instant, replaced by a frantic, breathless scrambling as the American attorneys furiously muted their microphones, their faces draining of color as they frantically consulted with one another. They were entirely unprepared for this maneuver. They had expected to fight modern probate law in an American jurisdiction. They had not prepared to wage war against the ancient, sovereign decrees of the British Empire on its own soil. Catherine leaned forward, breaking her statuesque stillness just enough to deliver the final, psychological death blow. She made it abundantly clear, staring directly into the lens, that the sacred legacy of Princess Diana was not a cheap commodity to be carved up, monetized, and paraded down a Hollywood red carpet to secure a streaming deal or elevate a collapsing personal brand. She asserted herself not merely as a sister-in-law, but as the ultimate, fierce protector of the crown's dignity and the sole, uncompromising guardian of the next generation's royal inheritance. The opposing lawyers fell completely, agonizingly silent. The archetypal clash was visceral, playing out in real time across the transatlantic feed. On one side stood the relentless engine of Californian commercialism, desperate to extract a piece of royal magic to fuel its fading relevance and satisfy an insatiable thirst for revenge. On the other stood the rightful heir, armed with the heavy, unyielding weight of centuries of tradition, standing as an impenetrable wall. Faced with the ironclad, devastating authority of the 1981 Act, the California legal team suddenly realized they had absolutely no jurisdiction, no leverage, and no path forward. Their multimillion-dollar legal heist, months in the making, had been ruthlessly dismantled in less than 5 minutes by a woman they had critically underestimated, leaving them trapped in a web of sovereign law from which there was no escape. The standoff ended with a brutal, mechanical efficiency that left the American legal syndicate entirely paralyzed. Within a single hour of that encrypted feed abruptly terminating, the master of the rolls, operating under the direct, unquestionable instruction of the sitting monarch, formally and permanently struck Meghan's emergency injunction from the High Court register. The heavily stamped California legal documents, which had been wielded just moments prior as a weapon of mass public relations destruction, were unceremoniously reduced to legally void waste paper. Back in the damp, subterranean corridors of the Tower of London, the atmosphere shifted from tense anticipation to absolute, unwavering authority. The private legal courier, pale and visibly sweating under the harsh fluorescent lights, was forced to relinquish his white-knuckled grip on the armored transport box. He was swiftly escorted from the premises by armed royal guards, his transatlantic mission ending in complete, humiliating failure. The Spencer Emerald choker was immediately extracted from its vulnerable, temporary transit casing. In the sterile light, the priceless green stones seemed to pulse with the heavy, unspoken history of the woman who once wore them, now rescued from the brink of commercial exploitation. Under the cover of total darkness, the jewels were placed into a highly secure, unmarked convoy. Flanked by a motorized police escort that silently bypassed the prying, flashing lenses of the London paparazzi, the emeralds were transported at high speed away from the city centre, heading straight for the impenetrable bedrock beneath Windsor Castle. Down in the deepest, climate-controlled chambers of the ancient fortress, where the most sacred, blood-soaked relics of the British Empire are entombed, a state-of-the-art biometric vault awaited its newest resident. The heavy steel door hissed open, breaking the centuries-old silence of the royal crypts. King Charles and Princess Catherine stood shoulder to shoulder in the dim, sterile light, an impenetrable united front. Their irises were scanned by the pulsing red lasers. Their fingerprints were registered on the cold glass of the security terminal. They watched in absolute, unbroken silence as the emeralds were reverently placed onto a black velvet pedestal. The heavy titanium door swung shut with a terrifying, echoing finality, the massive locking mechanism engaging with a series of deep, metallic thuds that vibrated through the stone floor. The claim was dead. Kate Middleton had single-handedly outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and utterly annihilated the most expensive, aggressive legal machine in America, locking the ghost of Diana safely within the impregnable walls of the institution she had died serving. But the emeralds are merely safe for tonight, locked away in the dark, silent depths of Windsor. Across the Atlantic, the agonizing sting of this unprecedented, catastrophic defeat is burning fiercely through the pristine halls of Montecito. Palace intelligence, working tirelessly around the clock to monitor the digital and legal footprint of the Sussex estate, suggests a chilling new development. Meghan, fueled by the staggering, visceral humiliation of being intellectually and legally decimated by her sister-in-law on a global stage, is rapidly pivoting to a terrifying, far more destructive Plan B. If she cannot legally possess the physical, glittering remnants of Diana's legacy, she is preparing to seize total, uncompromising control of Diana's narrative. She is preparing to weaponize the past. The whispers currently echoing through the highest, most secretive echelons of the international publishing world are absolutely chilling. Rumors are rapidly swirling of a multi-million-dollar, fast-tracked memoir, negotiated in absolute secrecy behind closed doors, bearing the sinister, highly calculated working title, The Second Daughter. What explosive, entirely fabricated secrets are currently being engineered in the draft pages of this impending manuscript? What twisted, revisionist history will be unleashed upon a gullible, hungry public to avenge this crushing legal defeat? Will she attempt to rewrite the very memory of the late Princess of Wales to cast herself as the ultimate, tragic successor, while painting Catherine as the cold, calculating villain? The battle for the royal jewellery was a resounding, spectacular victory for the Princess of Wales, a masterclass in constitutional defence and psychological warfare. But the war for the soul, the memory, and the ghost of Princess Diana has only just begun. The monarchy is currently bracing for an impact of catastrophic proportions, fortifying its legal and public relations defenses, preparing for a relentless media onslaught designed to tear down the very fabric of the institution from the outside in. The silence from California is not a surrender, it is the deep, terrifying breath before the scream. The storm is rapidly gathering on the horizon, the sky darkening with the undeniable promise of unprecedented royal warfare, and the mainstream media is already preparing to spin the narrative against the true defenders of the crown. You cannot rely on the glossy tabloids or the biased network anchors to tell you the truth when the next bomb finally drops. They will sell you the Hollywood victim narrative because it generates clicks, but they will hide the constitutional warfare happening in the shadows. If you want to stand on the front lines of this historic, high-stakes battle, if you want to be the absolute first to know the hidden legal maneuvers, the secret palace defenses, and the unvarnished truth behind the royal curtain, you must act now. Hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell immediately. Smash the like button to show your unwavering support for Catherine's relentless strength in the face of absolute betrayal. and share this video everywhere to expose the California PR machine for what it truly is. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and brace yourselves for the fallout. We will see you in the next royal update, because the darkest, the most explosive days of this transatlantic war are yet to come.